The whole village turned out on the Elo, men, women, and children. They stood round in a huge circle, leaving the center of the playground free. The elders and grandees of the village sat on their own stools, brought there by their young sons or slaves. Okonkwo was among them. All others stood except those who came early enough to secure places on the few stands which had been built by placing smooth logs on forked pillars. The wrestlers were not there yet, and the drummers held the field. They too sat just in front of the huge circle of spectators, facing the elders. And clapped. The drums rose to a frenzy. The people surged forward. The young men who kept order flew around, waving their palm fronds. Old men nodded to the beat of the drums and remembered the days when they wrestled to its intoxicating rhythm. The contest began with boys of 15 or 16. There were only 3 such boys in each team. They were not the real wrestlers, they merely set the scene. Within a short time, the first 2 bouts were over, but the third created a big sensation even among the elders who did not usually show their excitement so openly. It was as quick as the other 2, perhaps even quicker, but very few people had ever seen that kind of wrestling before. As soon as the 2 boys closed in, one of them did something which no one could describe because it had been as quick as a flash, and the other boy was flat on his back. Okonkwo sprang to his feet and then quickly sat down again. The air, which had been stretched taut with excitement, relaxed again. It was as if the water had been poured on the tightened skin of a drum. Many people looked around, perhaps for the first time, and saw those who stood or sat next to them. The drummers took up their sticks, and the air shivered and grew tense like a tightened bow. There were 12 men on each side, and the challenge went from one side to the other. 2 judges walked around the wrestlers, and when they thought they were equally matched, stopped them. 5 matches ended this way. The really exciting moments were when a man was thrown. The huge voice of the crowd then rose into the sky and in every direction. It was even heard in the surrounding villages. The last match was between the leaders of the teams. They were among the best wrestlers in all the 9 villages. The crowd wondered who would throw the other this year. Some said Okafu was the better man. Others said he was not the equal of Ikuzu. Last year neither of them had thrown the other, even though the judges had allowed the contest to go on longer than was the custom. They had the same style, and each one saw the other's plans beforehand. It might happen again this year. Ikuzu held out his right hand. Okafu seized it, and they closed in. It was a fierce contest. Ikuzu strove to dig his right heel behind Okafu so as to pitch him backwards in the clever Eje style, but the one knew what the other was thinking. The crowd had surrounded and swallowed up the drummers, whose frantic rhythm was no longer a mere disembodied sound, but the very heartbeat of the people. The wrestlers were now almost still in each other's grip. The muscles on their arms and their thighs and on their backs stood out and twitched. It looked like an equal match. The 2 judges were already moving forward to separate them when Ikuzu, now desperate, went down quickly on one knee in an attempt to fling his man backwards over his head. It was a sad miscalculation. Quick as the lightning of Amadoria, Okafu raised his right leg and swung it over his rival's head. The crowd burst into a thunderous roar. Okafu was swept off his feet by his supporters and carried home shoulder high. They sang his praise, and the young women clapped their hands.